You are listening to Leading the Factory Forward with your host, Lynn Friest. We share interviews with manufacturing experts and strategies for embracing the digital future, recruiting a new workforce, finding new business. Lynn is an advanced manufacturing strategist and leadership consultant who is on a mission to show manufacturing leaders how to improve their current operations while preparing for a digital future. And here's your host, Lynn Friest.
Welcome to episode 21 of Leading the Factory Forward. Again, I'm your host, Lynn Friest, and welcome. This episode is about developing your value proposition. In the last episode, we introduced the business model canvas and the lean startup methodology. Now we are on the second part of our four-part series about using the lean startup and lessons that can be used for manufacturing leaders. So this episode is about creating your value proposition. And this is really a subset of the business model generation and business model canvas and emphasizes those sections of value proposition and customer segments. So we'll go over developing your value proposition and step you through a few ideas on how to get that done. And then following that, in the third episode, we'll take a look at the customer discovery part, possibly the most important part of this whole process. And it's another critical piece of the puzzle for you to learn how you get to know customers, attract customers, and provide innovation and new products and services to customers. So that'll be covered in our third episode. Back to the value proposition. We need to look at what we do in terms of what's the fit between the value map of services and products that you want to supply and what you hope to supply to the customer profile and what they need. In other words, what does your customer really want? So, logically, there are two sections to the value map. What you offer, or what your company or service is going to be, and what the customer needs. When you think in terms of what you offer, what are the specific products and services you want to offer? Giving those products and services, how do you create gains or things that the customer really wants to improve upon? Or conversely, how do you alleviate a pain for the customer? How do you help them eliminate something that's a frustration for them? And then we're going to look at from the customer side. Really, this is where it gets into some of this discovery work. What are the gains that they aspire to? What are the things they're seeking to achieve? What really is the customer after in their business, not just what you're providing? And then what are the pains the customer experiences? What are the things that irritate them, frustrate them, get in their way of being more successful in their business? And then simply, we need to take a look at what are the jobs the customer has to do? What are the things that they need to have done every day that maybe your product or service could help them do a little better? This would be more in the sense of providing higher productivity to them or streamlining their operations, not so much about providing new opportunities to them. So in the whole idea in this value proposition, you want to look at that fit. What's the fit between the problem they have and the solution you can provide? They may be looking for something that simply isn't in your wheelhouse to deliver. So it's important to know what they're really looking for. And then the other piece of this, is there evidence that customers care about the things that you're making or proposing to make? We go back to the earlier piece. Are they really interested in what you think is a great idea? And then finally, are there other products out there that you're thinking of doing or that might impact how you would do that? What's your competitors, in other words? And how can you anticipate or actually find out if the customers are using those products or how they feel about them? And that will be handled in our next session on customer discovery. Again, we can't emphasize enough. It's just the fact that whatever you're proposing, is it going to make sense for you from a business model point of view? And is it something you can make and sell at a profit? Now, kind of thinking about customer jobs. What are specifically the tasks the customer has to do? Now, you may think you know it, but you probably are going to need to interview to find out what those are. You think about things like, what can the customer not live without? What absolutely has to happen in their business to be successful? What are the things that happen every day for the customer? If they're interacting with their customers or experiencing changes in their environment, what are the things happening every day for them? And what are their routine activities that, and here again, could you make those routine activities more efficient or flow more quickly? How could you help them with things that are fairly routine? And finally, getting to them, what are the tasks that are critical for success of the customer? And these may be things they're good at already and maybe things they're missing that they have to work very hard at, but what are the critical success factors for your customer? Now, in all of this, while there's this idea of the tasks that are involved, there's also the emotions that are involved. And it could be, how does your customer get his sense of self-worth, his sense of accomplishment? How does she find things that are really fulfilling for her? It can be, How could you provide support to the customer almost from an emotional viewpoint by taking frustrations or worry away from them? And then, sometimes as you get into things like luxury goods, what the customer does with it is not just like an iPhone or a flip phone. Both of them can do some of the same things, but obviously there's more prestige in having the iPhone. So it could be that your product is almost a luxury. People will find worth in the fact that it's a premium thing that you offer. So then thinking about the customer pains, what are the things that maybe simply annoy them or frustrate them? Or what are the things that your customer finds too costly or things they'd like to do but can't do right now? They don't know how to do it or they don't have the right tools for it. And sometimes the solution that's currently available to them costs too much. Can you offer that solution at a lower cost point or in a different way? And then as you think about pains, what are the things that literally make them feel bad or frustrate them? If they're unable to serve customers, if they have problems working with suppliers, technology isn't working right, what are the things that, again, not only frustrate them, but literally make them feel bad? And then you could also check in what might be the environmental challenges your customers face or challenges from competitors. It could be your customers in a very uncertain economic environment, or maybe they have a large number of very tough competitors. So what are the things, as you talk about what I might offer them to help them in those roles where they're either facing an uncertain environment or very difficult competitors? And again, looking at current solutions, so it could be that something you're doing now is not that much different than what was out there. What are actually negatives to the customer in that they don't like the way something currently works? Can you make it work more easily or more fluid for them? And then you get to the piece where we mentioned the earlier environment. Well, in a different sense, look at where the customer may feel, hey, this product or this service or whatever it is bad for literally the environment. Can you do something different there? And then also consider, if you can find out, and probably it will be available, is where has the customer had failures? Where are their current products or work failing? Find out where it's really going bad for them, and can you help them with that? Now we think of gains or aspirations for the customer. What would he like to do to gain more market share? What would she like to have lower costs? What would they like to do to have a simpler and easier life as they go about their business? What things do they want to make their work flow more easily and smoothly? So those are the kinds of things where this is what they aspire to. Can your product or service help with those things? And again, going back to this idea of not just the activities, but the emotions involved. What do they see? What do they aspire to in terms of it makes them feel good, fulfills them, and it's a positive for them and a positive for maybe their community and the outside world? What are the things that would actually make them feel better? Finally, what would they term outrageous success to be? You think about what would be the things that would just be remarkable from them, things that they wish they could do that could really be a game changer for them. And is there some way that you could help create those game changers? So that sort of gives you some overall ideas about the value proposition. Now let's just go through some of the characteristics of a really good value proposition. Through experiments and discovery, you fit into what the customer needs as well as fit into your own business model so that this works for both of you. You focused on just a few things. You don't try to have a product that solves all of the gains or all of the pains for the customer, but just fixed on a few things in whatever you're delivering and doing them well. They know how to define success using your solution. They know how to define the value that you're providing. It could be that it's what you've given them is maybe too complex, but they know how to define value from what you're supplying to them. And again, if you're providing is something that's a differentiator, it's valuable to them because it's not a solution they can get from somewhere else. So that helps you in terms of your business as well as helping them. And then when you think of differentiating, does it allow them to differentiate themselves from their customers and from their competitors? And finally, it'll be really valuable when your product or service helps them address the emotional or higher needs of their customers, not just tactical or routine needs. So how have you taken their value proposition and pushed it to a higher level? And then very lastly, it's going to be useful to you if whatever solutions you're providing is something that's fairly difficult to copy and replicate. So in summary, there are two sections to the value proposition canvas: what you offer and what the customer needs. What you offer, what are literally the products and services you offer? How do you create a gain for the customer? How do you alleviate a pain for the customer? Then in terms, similarly, what the customer wants from their perspective. What are the gains they aspire to? What are the things they're seeking to achieve? What are their pains? What are the things that irritate and frustrate them? And then simply looking at what are the jobs the customer has to do. What are the things they need to have done every day that maybe your product or service could do better, faster, quicker for them? So again, to wrap up, there are going to be resources. It's interesting in a podcast to try to talk about something like the value proposition canvas, because these are visual, just as the business model canvas is. But please look at the resources, use those as a source to help you take a look at that. And also there's literally the book called The Value Proposition Canvas. Again, a wonderful book, very visual in the way it's created and very useful. So as far as a call to action, I'd ask you to try out 2 of the ideas during this next week and leave me a note in the website comments. Think about the value proposition. What is your customer's gains? What are your customer's pains? Now, next up, we're going to be exploring and deciding on your customer discovery process and journey, because those are the things that really have the most impact, is getting to know your customers. So look forward to this next episode. And again, thank you and see you next time.